Welcome back to Snetterton for the final race of the season in the F3 Cup Championship, and again a championship still on the line between the likes of George Lyne and Shane Kelly. After the prior two races, the gap now between the top two is just 15 points, so pretty much whoever finishes ahead in this one should be taking the championship. So as the cars work their way onto the grid, it's Paul Dagg, double winner so far this weekend, who starts from pole position. Robbie Watts is there on the outside of row number one. Back on row two, it's George Lyne, has the slight advantage over Shane Kelly into this final race, and then James Heffernan on the outside of row two. And then Daryl Jones, run well so far this weekend, starts alongside Jacopo Sebastiani in 6th place. Revs rise, lights out, and away we go for a slightly longer 20-minute race for the F3 Cup Championship. And up towards the first corner they go. Poleman, Paul Dagg, not the best of the starts, unfortunately. So Robbie Watts is going to charge into the first corner first, and Paul Dagg has pretty much been mugged there. Everyone else goes round the outside of him. He's going to drop down to possibly 4th place. But it's Robbie Watts who emerges as the leader. George Lyne, not what you want to be doing as the championship leader, runs slightly deep in towards the Wilson's hairpin, but he's managed to get the car back on track and roughly in the same place it was when he turned in towards the hairpin there. So he rejoins in 4th, just ahead of James Heffernan, and more importantly, still ahead of Shane Kelly in car number 11. As kicking up the dust there was number 15, Wade Eastwood, just getting slightly wide on the exit of Palmer as the front runners turn their way through Agostini for the first time of Askim. You've got the likes of Shane Kelly in there with Jacopo Sebastiani, in turn now just behind the number 73 car of Daryl Jones by the looks of it, as they turn their way in towards Oggies for the first time of Askim. And yet there is Shane Kelly then, number 11. Every occasion so far this weekend he's finished behind George Lyne, so it's not looking too good at the minute, but of course with a longer race anything could happen. So let's see what Shane Kelly can do, if he can pick up the speed and try and get a few places ahead of George Lyne as the leaders work their way down through Brundle and Nelson for the first time. Already here Robbie Watts under attack from James Heffernan, who is having his best weekend to date so far. He's had a 4th, he's had a 3rd, at the minute he sits in 2nd place. It's not looking too shabby whatsoever as they turn their way on towards Coram Curve. 3rd place is still that of Paul Dagg after his slow start. And then 4th place for George Lyne. There he is, car number 10, works his way down towards Murray's, and just off the tail of these four is the number 73 car of Daryl Jones, who just resides ahead of Shane Kelly in car number 11. So up towards the completion of lap number 1, all the pit boards being hung out there just to indicate to the drivers where they are, what they need to do, and what the gaps may be between them and their closest challengers. So in towards Ritchie's they go. To the second lap of the race now. Robbie Watts even further under attack there from James Heffernan. The gap was just half a second between those two drivers out front. Jacopo Sebastiani not too far adrift either, having a good race there in 7th place. And in fact the top 7 now have broken away because they've left behind the likes of number 15 Wade Eastwood, who in fact now has been passed by already on this lap, number 13 Tony Bishop. So he's working his way through the order, a man who failed to finish race number 2 after a double spin, and one of those being on the last lap, so he dropped himself down as a non-finisher. But he's now, as I said, past Wade Eastwood into 7th place as the front runners work their way through on towards the right-hander at Williams. Robbie Watts just putting a little bit of ground now between himself and James Heffernan. The gap has grown slightly on this lap. Shane Kelly now is under attack from Jacopo Sebastiani. Gets a great run on towards the back straight. He's already down the inside line in towards the left-hander at Brundle they go. Can he get through? Sebastiani is braver on the brakes, and yep, Shane Kelly has no answer unfortunately, so he has to let him go on this occasion. But again, still with a little bit of this race to go, there's chance for Shane Kelly to work his way back through the order, although Jacopo Sebastiani has got quicker and quicker as the weekend has gone on. He's finished in 9th place in race 1, 6th place in race 2, and currently sits in 6th in race number 3 as well. But Shane Kelly looking once more to get back past. They head their way up towards the line to complete lap number 2. On to lap number 3 goes Robbie Watts, still with James Heffernan there in 2nd. The gap again not changing too much between the top 2 there, so James Heffernan keeping Robbie Watts honest. And bear in mind, he's trying to do this with the attention of George Lyne right in his mirrors as well here. So George Lyne pretty much knows what he needs to do. Shane Kelly knows what he needs to do, but at the minute it's not working in Shane's favour. He's a little bit further back and needs to finish at least 15 points ahead of George Lyne, but it's going to come right down to the final few laps as George Lyne now has to go defensive as Daryl Jones is onto the tail of him in 4th place. So Daryl Jones looking around the outside at Agostini. Number before too much longer. Jacopo Sebastiani is going to be right with them as well. So it's a three-way train for 4th, 5th and 6th places. Slightly up the road there, James Heffernan was also looking to make a move on Robbie Watts, and we can see that now down towards Oggies. Robbie being pushed all the way through the double right-handed corner. And then on towards the back straight they go once more. Paul Dagg is keeping with them as well. So we're just starting to bunch off now. 2 separate groups of 3. Whereas this man has been left all on his own in 7th place. And to be fair behind, Tony Bishop is starting to catch as well. So Shane Kelly is not yet cement in 7th position, with a very quick Tony Bishop onto his tail as well before too much longer. Down through Brundle and Nelson then come our top 3. Slightly different order from what we've had this weekend so far. Robbie Watts yet to be a race winner. He was almost a non-finisher in race 1, but he got through to 8th place. Race number 2 he finished in 2nd, and race number 3 again being the best for him so far, just like James Heffernan as they come through Murray's for another occasion. Up towards the line they stream. Let's see if James has managed to bring the gap down any more as they cross the line. It was half a second. This time round it sits at 0.4 of a second, so James Heffernan has done enough once again to bring it down. Here comes Daryl Jones looking for the inside line on George Line. That would have been the perfect line as such to get past George there, but again he wasn't quite close enough and not that late on the brakes to be fair, so he now has to just sit in tow behind George Line as they work their way out of Wilson's hairpin down towards the left-hander at Palmer. And again James Heffernan getting closer and closer in this fight for the lead. As we said, he's had a solid result earlier in the season where he picked up a win at Spa. But can he end the season on a high as well as they turn away through Agostini. There's Daryl Jones just looking briefly on the back of George Line. Jacopo Sebastiani's just fallen off now, those two, so he finds himself into the clutches of Shane Kelly, and behind them still getting closer and closer, the number 13 car of Tony Bishop, who again is having his best run of the weekend of the 3 races we've had so far. So through on towards the back straight once more go our leaders. Paul Dagg picking up the speed now and trying to get closer onto the tail of our 2nd place man. So let's see what he can do on the brakes down towards Brundle and Nelson. James Heffernan is the first man to dive out and try and make a move on Robbie Watts, but again, not quite close enough, so he has to bide his time once more. Heads down towards the bomb hole. Pretty much equidistant now between the top 3. Around about the same margin between all of these contenders as they work their way on towards the right-hander at Coram Curve. And who's going to be the first man to try and make a move here? Who can we see through the order? At the minute, it probably looks to be Paul Dagg, double winner so far this weekend, as he turns his way on towards the centre straight, heads across the line, and the gap again gets ever closer between the top 3. Again, a very small piece of string keeps them together. They turn through in towards Richie's corner. Is Paul Dagg going to try for a move up towards the 2nd corner? Let's have a look as they come into view, and he does. Paul Dagg down the inside line. He makes contact briefly with James Heffernan, who gets squeezed onto the outside curb there as they power their way down towards Palmer. James Heffernan, though, luckily for him, is on the inside line for Palmer, which means Paul Dagg will have to try again. He'll try and get the cut back on the run down the short straight in towards Agostini, but straight away Robbie Watts' gap has grown dramatically here, and here comes Paul Dagg for a second chance to get through down the inside line. A lock up from James Heffernan, and running wide as well as Paul Dagg, and look who comes through. The championship leader George Line goes straight through on 2 places and gets himself up into 2nd place there. So Paul Dagg tried for it. James Heffernan saw it come in. He made a mistake. Paul Dagg made a mistake, and in the process, as we said, George Line went straight through and picks up 2nd place. So a very opportunistic there for George. In the meantime, Shane Kelly has made no ground whatsoever. He still finds himself on the tail of what's going to be James Heffernan now by the looks of it. So he's down in 7th position. So your new order is Robbie Watts that still leads. 2nd is George Line. 3rd place then is Paul Dagg. 4th place through the picture there is going to be Daryl Jones in car number 73. And then behind that you've got Jacopo Sebastiani, James Heffernan, along with Shane Kelly, who hasn't moved at all. And Tony Bishop still sits there in 8th position. But the gap out front has really grown now. It's 2.2 seconds, I reckon, as they come through at the end of the first couple of sectors in towards the final corner. Up towards the line they turn once more. The gap between 2nd and 3rd, though, is not much at all by the looks of it, and 3rd to 4th is also very, very close as well. And towards the end of the lap, the gap stayed roughly the same, just over the 2-second mark between 1st and 2nd, but this is the enticing battle now to watch out for between 2nd, 3rd and 4th, still held by George Line. How much longer for, though? Paul Dagg under attack here from Daryl Jones, who tries to go for the high, wide and handsome line round the outside, but it doesn't quite work there, unfortunately, so has to get back into the tow. and see what he can do about Paul Dagg down towards Agostini. But as soon as he's made an attack on Paul Dagg, he's now under pressure from Jacopo Sebastiani as they work their way in towards the left-hander at Agostini. Here comes Jacopo for the inside line, but again, Daryl Jones has that covered very, very nicely indeed, so he's not going to be ousted from his 4th position. Daryl Jones so far this weekend has finished in the top 5 on both occasions, so he's looking pretty strong for another top 5 performance, although Jacopo is looking pretty racy. You've got also in there as well the recovering James Heffernan. He's trying to get himself into the mix as well as they turn their way on towards the back straight. Watch out for Shane Kelly in car number 11, and also the number 13 car of Tony Bishop as well, all line astern as they work their way down the Bentley straight. Here comes Tony, thinking about a move, but gets back into line, and in the end he was a little bit distant in 8th place. So on towards the final corner at the bomb hole they now go. Still no change amongst the front runners. And what is Robbie Watts doing out front? Is he being caught, or is the gap starting to grow with George Lyne still having to defend from Paul Dagg as they work their way in towards Murray's, the VS racing machine there of Paul, joining us for the first time this weekend in the F3 Cup Championship. And he's been a little bit of a breath of fresh air, to be fair, because he's taken 2 wins. And probably that's not what everyone was expecting, but Paul Dagg has come charging out of the blocks. But can he make it a hat-trick? At the minute, it looks very unlikely because Robbie Watts is doing a nice job. Now leads by 2.6 seconds across the line. 2nd place still George Lyne, although not quite doing his best to defend from Paul Dagg there, who went for a very wide line through the corner. And in the end, George Lyne still held on to his 2nd place, but Paul Dagg was threatening to go past. They turn their way through Palmer. Again, is there any way for Paul Dagg to get through? He briefly thinks about it, but doesn't make head nor tail of going through there. So on his merry way he goes once more, turns down towards Hamilton. Behind still is Daryl Jones in 4th place, Jacopo Sebastiani inside the top 5, and on the coattails of them, the car of James Heffernan and Shane Kelly by the looks of it as they work their way through the Bentley straight. Again, Paul Dagg thinks about getting closer to George Lyne, but it's all about who defends the best and who keeps their line as neat as possible. Paul Dagg goes for a very long chance to get through on the inside at Brundle. He left that to the last possible moment, and George Lyne, no way, wanted to let him through there. He took him right towards the perimeter of the track, and in doing so, it's meant that Paul Dagg has now fallen back by a good 3 or 4 car lengths from George Lyne. Gives him some breathing space as they turn their way in towards Coram Curve. Paul Dagg wasn't going to be pounced on though by Daryl Jones because he wasn't quite close enough there, so the gap stays around about the same between 3rd and 4th. Here comes our 6th place fight between James Heffernan and Shane Kelly. They work their way on towards the centre straight as we have now just ticked over half race distance, just over 7 minutes of the race now to go, so it should be, I reckon, 4 or so laps to squeeze into this race. Goes Shane Kelly through, gets a very tight line through Ritchie's, which should set him up nicely for the run on the inside in towards Wilson's. Let's see if Daryl Jones appears in front. In fact, Shane Kelly is the man who appears in front, and the man who drops down there is James Heffernan. Very similar liveried cars, but James Heffernan is the man who loses out on this occasion. Daryl Jones, of course, just up the road ahead of these 2 fighting Formula 3 cars. Here comes our leaders once more. Oh, and Tony Bishop, I think, pretty much off in the same place he was in race number 2. Yeah, just on the exit of Wilson's hairpin. So he possibly could be into retirement once again, unless he can get that car fired back up once more. We'll have to wait and see if Tony does rejoin the race. But it's this intriguing battle that continues then between the 4 or so cars just outside the top 3 places. Jacopo Sebastiani, there you can see as well James Heffernan, Shane Kelly, the man challenging for the championship, but starting to fall further adrift now after the 2 previous races this weekend. It's George Lyne who is looking likely. But to take it down to the final race of the year is very, very entertaining. It's a championship that has been fought from the early stages, way back at Donington Park at the early stage of April. Still undecided on who's going to take it between George Lyne and Shane Kelly, who sits there. Oh, and a big bob there from James Heffernan, gets all over the curbs and went for a very leery ride. Just about got it back onto the track, but has lost a bit of ground to Shane Kelly. He hasn't lost any places because There's no one really within close proximity of him, so he's done enough to stay where he was in 8th place. But here comes Daryl Jones then, looking to try and make a move to the inside line of his nearest challenger. 2 fights in fact going on here. Here comes Daryl Jones down the inside line of Jacopo Sebastiani, and he goes through now. Shane Kelly will be trying to get through as well in the same sequence of corners, as a 2nd and 3rd place fight turns its way on towards the short straight down towards Agostini. And what can Paul Dagg now do? Can he find a way past George Line? Not as of yet, still very close between those two, around about half a second, if that, as they cross the line on that previous occasion. Robbie Watts, meantime, now leads by an extended 3.2 seconds, although that seems to be coming down as quicker laps have started to be set from those behind, especially with George Line now trying to shake off the attentions of Paul Dagg. Not quite succeeding as of yet, although this battle continues on its way as well, which is ever intriguing between the 4 cars. The likes of Jacopo Sebastiani, who's 2nd in that train now. It's Daryl Jones who has moved to the head of it. Shane Kelly's involved in that, and also the likes of James Heffernan, who I said was on for his best performance of the weekend in this 3rd and final race, but that's gone horribly wrong. He was at one stage running in 2nd position, but after being pushed wide and being attacked from those behind, he's now fallen to the end of this train. But again, still a little bit of time left for him to try and make up the places as they turn their way in towards the final corner at Murray's. Jacopo Sebastiani is the next man under attack here from our championship 2nd place man. Shane Kelly powers his way on towards the start-finish line. And Robbie Watts on this occasion now leads by a reduced margin because George Line has gone slightly quicker. The gap is down to 2.1 seconds. So George Line now is not hanging about. He's almost with Robbie Watts once more as they turn their way through on a big lunge there from Paul Dagg, who goes down the inside line. It wasn't really on, unfortunately. George Line has been hampered. There's bodywork that goes flying on one of the cars there. Was that the front wing of George Line, or was it the side skirting of Paul Dagg? It was a puncher, in fact, I think. Yeah, the right front is down on Paul Dagg, so he has made contact with George Line, and Paul Dagg is going to drop like a stone now towards the back of the field. And to be fair, he may just call this one a day, because with a puncher and with not long left in the race, he's going to have to get that changed pretty quickly, and by the time they do that, they're going to have no real chance of being any higher within the order. So what a shame. There was contact between the 2 drivers, George Line and Paul Dagg. It was Paul Dagg who went for the move, and hopefully George Line hasn't come off too bad, because if he does, that could give Shane Kelly a massive sigh of relief and possibly get himself back up into the championship lead. But it's all going to see what happens with George Line. Of course, it was his front wing that made contact with the wheel of Paul Dagg, so he should be absolutely fine by the looks of it. But as that gap was coming down to 2.1 seconds, it's going to be a little bit more now between Robbie Watts and George Line. And here comes Daryl Jones down the inside line on Jacopo Sebastiani. He goes through now into the final podium place, and here comes Shane Kelly, not quite done with this race, needs as many points as possible. Jacopo Sebastiani just about gets the door shut in favour of himself, and Shane Kelly would have moved up 1 place into 5th position by the looks of it, but still not going to be enough points, and still behind George Line within this race. And again behind, James Heffernan runs wide and loses further ground to those 3 cars ahead as they go up towards the first corner at Ritchie's, who is going to look for a move. Shane Kelly thinks about going past Sebastiani, but again not quite close enough, and he may just be hampered through the corner as well. Oh, and Tony Bishop is adding more woes here to his race, because he's had a 4th spin of the weekend, his 2nd of the race. So Tony will rejoin, but again it will be pretty much plumb last. Paul Dagg, by the way, has almost made it back to the pits with that punch-up, but again it's going to be a bad result for him after the 2 wins in race 1 and race 2. Gap out in the front between Robbie Watts and George Line did extend, as you would have expected after the move there from Paul Dagg. It went out to 4.4 seconds. So Robbie Watts looking good, and in fact here is the confirmation of Paul Dagg working his way back into the pits, and we'll see if he get that tyre changed or if he'll call it a day with just a couple of laps now to go. On through the right-hander at Oggies goes our fight for 4th. Jacopo Sebastiani, Shane Kelly there in car number 11, and then just behind them still is the James Heffernan car, who continues to make mistakes, unfortunately. He's been over the exit curb of Murray's a couple of times, which has just put pay to his progress in this race, but again with a few laps still to go, he may just be able to do something about those ahead as they work their way through. George Line has just dropped off the pace somewhat here. He's been caught by Daryl Jones, who was not quite content with finishing in 3rd place. He wants to get a little bit higher on this podium, and would he be able to do it before we head into the last few laps? Well, let's have a look and wait and see. There is in fact number 99 Paul Dagg back on his way, so he's managed to rejoin the track a lap down pretty much, but he will be classified as a finisher. As onto the last lap goes Robbie Watts, car number 7. He's looking for his first win of the weekend. He's going to do it by a good 5 seconds by the looks of it. That's what the gap was that last time round. George Lyon will push on his final tour of the 300 circuit, but has he done enough? Or is it going to go the way of Shane Kelly? As of yet, we're not too sure which way it's going to go, but Shane Kelly, whatever he needs to do, just push towards the end, because it's not over until the checker flag is waved. So down towards Agostini for the final time, and if you get moves like this in front of you, it could all help your cause a little bit further, to be fair. So Jacopo Sebastiani looking on the back of Daryl Jones, trying to get his way through onto the podium. And of course for Jacopo Sebastiani, that would be his first one of the weekend after a top 5 finish, or in fact a top 6 finish in race number 2. He's going to get his best performance of the weekend here in race number 3, as the line of Formula 3 cars work their way on towards the back straight for the last time of asking, and the last lap to be completed this year in the F3 Cup Championship. There goes Robbie Watts in a very commanding lead for now as he turns his way through Brundle and Nelson. George Lyon still not that secure in second. Daryl Jones will give it one last try, I'm sure, down towards Murray's corner. I think the positions behind should now pretty much be settled between Jacopo Sebastiani, Shane Kelly, and also in there as well James Heffernan, as Robbie Watts comes now down in towards the left-hander at Murray's. He powers his way towards the line, and it's going to be a first win of the weekend for Robbie Watts. And then in the last race of the season, he'll take a very healthy win. As Robbie Watts crosses the line in the final F3 Cup Championship race, he takes the spoils in the end ahead of George Lyon, who crossed 3 seconds adrift there of Robbie Watts. Third place goes the way of Daryl Jones. Again, for him, that will be his best performance of the weekend, his first podium of the weekend here at Snetterton. Fourth place will go to Jacopo Sebastiani, and Shane Kelly finishes in 5th place. But which way is the championship going? That's what we all want to know. 6th place across the line was James Heffernan after a cracking start, but in the end he dropped himself down into 6th. Stuart Wiltshire comes through in 7th place, and there you can see Robbie Watts being congratulated by Daryl Jones, who finishes on the podium as well. So Robbie Watts, George Lyon and Daryl Jones, your top 3. Jacopo Sebastiani comes through in 4th place, just ahead of Shane Kelly. James Heffernan, Stuart Wiltshire, Mark Harrison, Malcolm Scott and Paul Dagg did make it back out onto circuit after his puncher and a pit stop to finish inside the top 10. So great racing as ever here at Snetterton, but what has happened with the championship? That's what we want to find out, and I think Alan Hyde has managed to find George Lyon down there in the Parc Fermé area.
Second, I'm not sure whether we did win it in the end, but
right, we reckon you did, but we're by no means official. But you need to get some kind of official confirmation now. Who are you going to go to for that? Team, officials? What are you going to do next?
I think my girlfriend Faye's very good with her maths, so I think I'll go. She'll be her first port of call.
Right, where is she? Faith? She over here. So what? So you're good at maths, he says. No, I'm not, she says. so we don't have the answer yet.
No, she's very confident, but
right. Okay, but this is quite an important thing to not get right, isn't it? So you've done the right decision. Okay, we will get official confirmation, but at the moment we reckon that he has secured the championship, maybe by 1 point, maybe by more than 1 point. We shall get the results of the official confirmation. They're working it out now inside the office to be sure, double sure and triple sure.
After all the numbers have been crunched, it is confirmed that George Lyon is the champion for this year by just 1 single point over Shane Kelly. So he'll be a delighted man as he works his way onto the podium. He'll try and take the top step, but it doesn't quite belong to him in race number 3. That goes to Robbie Watts, of course, who jumps to the top. In terms of the Sunoco Weekend Driver of the Day, that goes to the like of George Lyon as well. So he picks up another award for this weekend. So he'll be a very happy man leaving Snetterton this weekend, and they are the team champions as well for CF Racing. They received that accolade, and David Scott will be the man who delivers the big board to George Lyon as our 2016 F3 Cup champion here to round out the season at Snetterton.